Let's talk about Ephesus, first of all, because God's speaking to a specific city, and I believe this relates to us as well. But Ephesus was a very special city. It was a very famous city. It's one of the 7 churches in Turkey or Asia Minor that is addressed here in Revelation, but it's a city that Paul fought to get to. It was really the crowning jewel of his ministry. When we think about the early church, we might think about Jerusalem as the place where it all started, or some people think of Antioch as a place where they learned how to live in community and then sent missions agencies out. Some people might look further ahead and think about Rome and how it became a center of worship and culture around the world. But I like to think about Ephesus because I believe it's a picture of how the church can be today. Because Ephesus was not a city people that were Christians wanted to go to. Ephesus was a center of goddess worship. It was one of the places of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. The temple of the goddess Diana, or Artemis, the temple of the goddess of love. People would travel all around the world to see this temple, and they went there. It was kind of like Las Vegas. What happens in Ephesus stays in Ephesus, because it was not a kind of church like we have here. It was a kind of church where they worshiped in horrible ways and immoral ways, and they worshiped immorality. It was a city centered around the worship of immorality. Not just that. Its entire economy was built around this worship. So people would come around the world, and craftsmen would create idols of this goddess that people would take home and worship. And so the entire economy of Ephesus was built around immorality and idolatry. And this is the place where Paul decides to start the church. Paul, the father of the Gospels, the father of Timothy, by the way, who became the pastor of the church of Ephesus. Let me fast forward a little bit the story of Ephesus, because Ephesus became the center of the Eastern church. They say, historians tell us, that there were over 100,000 people in home groups that met all over Ephesus, that the worship of the goddess Diana was toppled, that the whole economy was changed, and it all started with one man who came into a city and preached the gospel in the city, who preached the gospel, and a fire started, actually. Literally, the fire of the lampstand of the church of Ephesus started with a fire, because people heard the gospel and they began to burn their idols. They began to burn their witchcraft books. They set a fire in the city, burning the immorality, and it caused a transition. And I want to tell you something. This past year, the Lord has said, I don't just want you to burn inside the church. I want you to set a fire in the city. I want to let your light shine so much that when people see the difference between you, it changes them. It changes the way they do things.